I'm sorry, my past few videos have been in this format, but this is for my safety and for others around me. I want to be clear about that from the start of this video, and it is not meant to send harassment toward anyone. It is meant to explain what happened truthfully and with proof. So, in the last video, I said the situation was wrapped up, and at the time, I genuinely believed that he changed. That was one of the biggest mistakes we could have made, and this video exists to explain why. After everything that happened before he told us that he canceled development on his game because the team he claimed to have was not working, he said things fell apart and that he was done with it. He also had several other projects he claimed to be working on alone, but none of them were making stable or consistent progress. Because of that, and because he said he wanted a fresh start, we decided to give him another chance and invited him to a dev team that was already established. We believe that if he was serious this time, he would actually show it through his actions. From the moment he joined, there were red flags. He did almost no actual development work. Some of the things he did make were remove my oof, not out of hate, not out of harassment, but because they did not fit the game style and were not visually polished enough. This is normal in development assets getting removed or replaced all the time. Instead of it improving or asking for feedback, he took it personally and started framing it as an attack. Around this time, he started pushing for control. He created a poll about ownership between me and Oof. The team voted, and I was chosen as the new owner. Oof respected the vote and transferred ownership to me, which shows he cared about the team and the project. Even after that playtime continued trying to pressure me to make decisions that benefited him specifically, not the team, and not the game. What matters most here is that after joining, the very first thing he focused on was not work, it was drama. He repeatedly tried to get me into voice calls so I could talk about Oof. I told him multiple times to just type because I was not trying to gossip or start problems. He ignored that and straight up said he wanted drama. He literally said it. On Oof. I said no, clearly, and directly multiple times, and I made it clear I was not going to start drama, especially against my own cousin. Instead of stopping, he doubled down. He justified it by saying Oof could not take a joke, or that Oof was annoying. But that does not matter. You can't attack someone just because they do not trust you. And you cannot force trust. I explained that to him very clearly, and every time I did, he avoided the point or shifted blame onto someone else whenever I asked a direct question about his behavior, his work, or the past issues. He would deflect. At that point, it became obvious nothing had changed. He admitted he did not care how this made him look, and he said he hated Oof, and he continued pushing for drama even after I explained that it would only make things worse at any time. I brought up stolen work, unpaid work, or deleted content because he was being a hypocrite, saying Oof didn't pay him. We're a small dev team. You can't just say, you didn't pay me, but in the past, you didn't pay me either, so... And he said he didn't want to talk about it. He said he did not want to talk about it, but those things did not disappear. Just because someone is uncomfortable, they're still real, and they still matter. What really confirmed everything for me was the way he tried to isolate people. He spoke as if his decisions were already made, when they were not clearly claimed authority. He did not have authority. He had authority. He claimed to have authority he didn't have, actually. And he tried to push people out while presenting it as helping the team. When I called this out, he played the victim and said he was just trying to help, but his actions never matched his words. The messages and missed calls show this clearly. He repeatedly called me, asking to talk about Oof. He said directly he wanted drama. He admitted hating him, and he said Oof needed it. Even after being warned that studying drama would only make things worse, he admitted that Oof never actually said the things he accused him of, and still continued pushing the narrative. Well, when confronted about unpaid work or stolen assets, he told me not to talk about it because he did not want to be reminded of it. That response alone said everything. Accountability is not optional. You do not get to avoid responsibility because it's uncomfortable. He admitted not paying me and dismissed it as if it did not matter. Throughout the entire conversation, every pattern, repeated manipulation, escalation, deflection, and blame, he tried to frame himself as the victim, while actively pushing for harassment and conflict. He admitted he wanted Oof gone, not for the health of the team, but for his personal reasons. He tried to isolate me from the others and claimed decisions that were never agreed on. This conversation was the moment I realized we made a mistake. Thinking he changed, we gave him another chance instead of growth, accountability, or teamwork. We saw the same obsession with drama, control, and blame. This video exists not to attack, but to explain why that chance was the final one. This is not about opinions. The proof is on the messages, the calls, and the actions. Intent matters. And here the intent was clear. He did not want to work. He wanted drama, attention, and control. And that is something we could not allow to continue. If you stayed through this, thank you. I will continue to explain things clearly and truthfully, because protecting the truth and protecting people matters more than staying quiet. First off, saying you wanted drama is not a slip-up. It changes the whole picture because it shows motive, not just mistakes. When someone actually says they want drama, that tells you they value attention and conflict more than fixing things or taking responsibility. That lines up with the rest of the behavior we saw. It explains why he would post one-sided shorts. It explains why he would try to push people into fights instead of working on the game. And it explains why he would avoid any forum where he could be checked or forced to answer with either intent. Is huge because it turns a timeline of lazy or inconsistent behavior into a pattern of choosing chaos over collaboration. Second, the deletion and hiding of evidence starts to make sense once you add motive to the mix. If your goal is drama and clout, you want attention. But you do not want the receipts to back up the other side, deleting files, avoiding in-game court, and renaming the project. All act like a cover-up strat. It's not random, it's deliberate. If you want views and drama, but you don't want consequences, you delete the things that prove you're wrong, and push a new narrative so the audience only sees what you want them to see. That's a tactic, shows planning, not accident. Third, the one-sided shorts and exposing usernames without disclaimers is not just sloppy, it's dangerous. It's how small conflicts turn into harassment in minutes. By posting someone's name in a heated situation, you're effectively pointing a crowd at a person, whether you say don't harass or not. People will react. And curious people will become haters, and the risk matters because it affects real people and real careers. For content creators, that reach thousands careless short. It can cause doxing attempts, targeted messages, or threats. And that's why this pattern of escalation matters beyond just hurt feelings. Fourth, the isolation moves where he talks like decisions already made or pressures others to act against team members, or classic control tactics. When you combine those with the drama, it becomes a strategy, not just bad communication. He wanted to split the team get people aligned to his side, and then amplify the fallout publicly. That's exactly how small group issues become full-blown drama. It also shows why the team could not trust him again. When someone tries to pick sides like that, it damages collaboration long term. Fifth, this is not a one-time thing. Look at Bob, Glitchland, Corrupted Realm, and other projects. The same pattern repeats. Not contributing, deleting work, renaming, or continuing under a new name. And then pushing narrative pieces publicly over patterns. Over time equal credibility. If something happens once, you chalk it up to a mistake. But when the same moves repeat across multiple projects, you have proof of a behavior style, and that makes it so much easier to explain to neutral people why steps had to be taken, and why the team pulled him out. 6. The consequences are real and wide-ranging. Trust collapses quickly, even if you try to rebuild it. People will remember the way you handle it, and future collabs get riskier, opportunities dry up, and the emotional cost on team members is heavy being gaslit. Or having your work erased is exhausting. It drains creative energy for everyone involved. That's not drama. That's real damage to projects' reputations and mental health. And it's why documenting and speaking up mattered in the first place. 7th, having a piece of proof where he literally says he wanted drama gives you a stronger position. When you explain everything to a viewer platforms, or potential collaborators, it doesn't make you petty, it makes you careful. It proves you tried to give chances, you documented stuff, and you stepped away when the behavior continued. It also helps if you need to report harassment because it shows a pattern of escalation and motive behind it, which platforms and moderators actually care about. Finally, this all ties back to the lessons you keep repeating. Set boundaries, document your work, check who is actually doing the work and not confuse ideas. For ownership, intent matters more than excuses, and seeing the message where he asks for drama ties all the other symptoms together. And in one coherent reason, the project had to end, the team had to protect itself. And your decision to walk away was not personal, it was professional and necessary for everyone's safety and your future creative work. This is also where the evidence matters, because none of this is based on feelings or rumors. It is based on messages, timestamps, actions, and patterns that line up over time. The reason I keep mentioning evidence is because evidence shows intent, not just outcome. Anyone can claim misunderstanding. Anyone can say they changed, but when the messages show someone repeatedly asking for drama, avoiding accountability, deleting work, and refusing to address past actions, that is not an accident. That is a choice. And when those choices repeat across different situations, they stop being coincidences and start becoming a pattern. When you look at the chat messages and the timeline together, they all point the same direction. The moment he joined again, the focus was not on building or fixing things, it was on starting conflict. The messages where he says he wants drama are important because they explain everything that comes after they explain why he tried to pull me into private calls. Instead of typing, they explain why he kept pushing against Suf instead of working. They explain why one-sided content went up and why evidence started disappearing, because the goal is drama. You want attention without being questioned. Evidence also matters because it protects people. It stops situation from turning into word versus word Without proof, when I say something happened, I can show the messages when I say something was deleted. Their files timestamps. When I say he avoided accountability, there are logs showing deflection and refusal to talk about it. Whether it's petty, this is not being petty. This is being accurate. And accuracy is what keeps a situation from being twisted later. Another reason this evidence matters is because it shows escalation over time, not a single bad moment. The same behaviors appear again and again, in different forms across different projects: deleting work, reframing narratives, pushing control, avoiding direct questions, and trying to isolate people when all of those things show up together. Repeating it becomes very clear that the problem was never one argument or one person. It was a consistent approach to conflict and collaboration. This is also why renaming projects and continuation on the same foundation matters, because it shows that even after agreements were made, after wrongdoing was acknowledged, the behavior did not stop, the surface changed. But the action stayed the same, and evidence allows people that are watching to see that for themselves, instead of taking my word for it. The goal of showing this is not to embarrass or attack anyone, it's to explain why another chance could not be given. Why the situation did not quietly end. Evidence gives context, without exaggeration. It allows viewers to understand that the decisions made were not emotional, they were based on repeated behavior and documented actions. Alright, so eventually Glitchland got deleted. And yeah, that was a real moment. And it wasn't some tiny drama move. It was like the game just gone. Like months of work. Or maybe weeks. Erased. For about 4 months later, he tried to remake it, like, for real this time. He says he's restarting everything. And he pulls together a team, but the team did not actually want to work on his quote-unquote dream game. They didn't care. They weren't committed. And instead of actually fixing the problem, he kicked them out and not doing the work he wanted done. That move ties into everything because it shows the same pattern again. First, you avoid responsibility. Then you try to manufacture attention. And then when people don't bend to you, you remove them. Instead of leading properly, deleting Glitchland and then remaking it without real contributors looks like a cover-up, not a restart and rename. And remade projects don't erase history. They just hide it under a new label. And that matters because people who actually get built stuff get erased from the record. When he kicked me from the team, it wasn't about quality control. It was about control, period. He wanted a crew that would follow his narrative, not people who would actively build the game and hold him accountable. That lines up with the messages where he pushed for drama and the shorts that only showed his side. If you want drama, you need an audience. And you need silence from anyone who might prove you wrong. Kicking people would only speak up. Kicking people who could speak up is a way to silence receipts and control the story. This also matters for anyone watching who thinks this is a messy breakup of a project, because it's not the same as a team ending naturally when leaders remove contributors who actually made progress, and then keep the assets under a new name. That is effectively stealing momentum and calling it new. That undermines trust in collabs and makes it unsafe for people to work with someone like that in the future. So I'm just gonna say what he said. He said, "Join the call, I want to talk about Oof." I say, "Just type." He says, "No, I want to talk." Like VC. I say, "I'm not gonna gossip." He says, "Well, I want some drama on him." I say, "I'm not starting drama on my cuz." He says, he needs some drama on him. I say, hell no. He says, because you can't take a deem joke. I say, didn't he say he didn't trust you? He says, well, he makes me mad. He always wants to make me mad. So I leave. That's not, I say, this is not valid. You can't cancel someone for not trusting you. You can't force trust. He says, no, he just wants me to leave. And I say, he wants you to leave because you're harassment and negativity, prob. He says, well, I try to be kind. B, he just wants to make me mad, so you don't see it. And I say, that does not say what your previous behavior is like. You got made just because you got mad, just because Steamy joined a call. You are a hater. He says, well, next project, he's not going to be with us. I say, what next project? And who is us? He says, well, I just didn't like how we used Rage Baby. I say, he says, you and me. I say, says who? He says, me. I say, you cannot be serious. You can't say you were not paid. He says, I don't care. Most little devs get paid when the game's popular. And what work you are talking about? He says, well, work I did was deleted. Because he's a bad word. I say, so you can get banned for this. He says, I hate oof. I say, so your reaction is to start useless drama, which will make you look bad in the end. You are destroying your own picture here, man. He says, I don't care, oof wants me to fail. And I say, when did he say that? He says, never, but he wants me to. We gave you a chance, inviting you to this project, and you do this. Yeah, but he wanting to kick me all the time. This set of messages matters because it shows intent in real time, not after the fact, though interpretation, but though direct statements. The conversation starts with him repeatedly pushing for a private call, specifically to talk about oof. And when I tell him to just type, because I don't want to gossip or start anything, he refuses. That alone is important because private calls remove records. Typing creates receipts. In the moment someone avoids typing and insists on voice, it raises questions about accountability. Then the key line happens. He says he wants drama on him. That sentence is not emotional venting, it's a stated goal. From that point forward, everyone else in the conversation lines up with that motive. Because instead of talking about work or fixing issues, the focus stays on attacking someone else. He doubles down saying oof needs drama, and tries to justify it by saying oof can't take a joke, which shows rationalism, not misunderstanding. When I respond by saying you can't force trust, and you can't cancel someone for not trusting you, he never actually answers that point. Instead, he deflects and reframes himself as the victim, saying oof wants him gone, or when asking for proof, he admits oof never said that. This is important because it shows projection, blaming someone else for intentions that are not backed by evidence, while still pushing conflict. The evidence continues to build. When you start talking as if decisions are already made, saying things like, the next project he's not going to be with us, and then defining us as me and him, even though no such agreement existed. That shows attempted control and isolation, using language to create authority that was not ever given evidence like it matters, because it shows manipulation through assumption of not teamwork. Later in the conversation, when unpaid work, deleted assets come up, he says, I don't care, and avoids the topic. This matters because it shows a clear pattern of what accountability is ignored, whether it becomes uncomfortable, but drama is pursued aggressively. The contrast is the entire point. If someone wanted a resolution, they could address the work issues and not escalate personal conflict. His repeated statements like "I hate Oof" or "and I don't care," how this looks further reinforced intent. These aren't slips. These are consistent positions. And when he says he wants Oof he said Oof wants him to fail, and that admits that this was never. It never said it confirms narrative building, creating enemy to justify actions and attention. All of this evidence works together because it's time-stamped, continuous, and it shows cause and effect. Wanting drama leads to pushing calls, avoiding typed records, escalating drama, reframing events, ignoring accountability, and attempting to control dynamics. None of this relies on interpretation. It's all just visible in sequence. This is why these messages are important, not because they look bad on their own, but because they explain everything else that happened afterwards. The shorts, the deleted work overtime. No, the shorts, the deletion of work, the avoidance of court, in-game court, the renaming of projects, and the repeated conflicts. This conversation is the connective tissue that turns separate accidents into a clear pattern of behavior. Evidence like this doesn't exist to attack someone, it exists to prevent history from being rewritten. It shows that decisions made later were not emotional or sudden. They were responses to repeated documented actions and stated intent, and that is why this evidence matters. We also cannot ignore the most serious part of the situation, which is that explicit threats were made, statements about killing people, and statements about torturing Steamy were said directly. Those are not jokes. Those are not exaggerations, and they are not normal conflict language. Even if someone does not know where he lives or lack of ability to act on it, saying those alone crosses a hard line. Threats like that instantly change the context of everything. They turn drama into safety issues and remove any claim. And that was just frustration or venting once. Once language is escalated to violence, the responsibility is no longer on others to tolerate or to explain it away. The responsibility is on stopping it and protecting everyone involved. This is why evidence matters, because without documentation, these moments get minimized, dismissed, or rewritten. But with clear records, it becomes undeniable that what I said was intended and why action has to be taken. Boundaries were not set out of spite. They were set because allowing behavior like this to continue would be dangerous or irresponsible and unfair to everyone else. At that point of the situation, stopped. At that point, the situation stopped being about opinions, disagreements, or trust, and became about accountability and safety. And there is no version of this where those threats are acceptable, no matter the excuse. In the end, this wasn't a misunderstanding, and it wasn't a harmless joke. It was a repeated and deliberate attempt to create conflict, harm someone's reputation, and destabilize a project. He was invited into the evidence. Shows content, not once, but multiple times. And when given chances to explain or de-escalate, he chose to double down. That makes this especially wrong, is that it abused trust, collaboration, and good faith. Everyone involved gave him an opportunity to work, grow, and be included. Instead of respecting that, he pushed for private conversations, avoided accountability, and openly admitted he wanted drama. Those are not actions of someone seeking resolution. They are actions of someone choosing disruption. this behavior doesn't just affect one person. It affects entire teams, projects, and communities. It wastes time, creates fear, and forces others to defend themselves instead of building something meaningful. No project can function when someone is actively trying to tear others down from the inside. Because of that, the response to the situation was not retaliation, it was responsibility. Boundaries were not set out of anger, but of necessity to protect the project and the people involved. Actions have consequences, especially when they are documented, repeated, and intentional. This conclusion is not about punishment or revenge. It is about accountability. The clarity, the evidence exists, and so the truth cannot be rewritten. And so that moving forward, decisions are based on facts, not emotion or pressure. That happened when happened was wrong, and acknowledging this is the only way real progress can be made. I'll see you in the next one.